Courtside Daddy, tayo makinig. Courtside Daddy, tayo makinig. Dito sa sports walang halong pilit. Totoo, direkta, walang kupas. Ang kwentuhan natin, swabe at patas. Courtside Daddy, andito na. Balitang sports, tunay na saya. Usapang klaro, walang daya. Tiwala mo, amin to pare. Game na. Interview and tuhanuhan, walang bias dito. Kasama mo kami sa bawat laro. Courtside Daddy, sa sports ay hari. Totoo na rin ko, walang paligoy-ligoy pre.
There you go, Shuhaid. All right. Good evening, Courtside Daddy fans. Welcome to another episode of Courtside Daddy. My name is Rayu Policarpio. And we have a very special guest with us today. Hindi na to kailangan ng sobrang habang introduction, but let me introduce to you guys a legend in sports journalism here in the Philippines. He is widely regarded as the voice of Philippine sports commentary, a longtime columnist of the Philippine Star, a PBA and boxing analyst, and the man behind some of the most iconic nicknames in local hoops history. Tatanungin natin siya later dyan. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Kenito Dadin Henson. Woo!
Maraming salamat, Ryu, and to all the fans of Courtside Daddy. We're in for a nice 1.5 hours of conversation. Pag-uusapan natin everything you want to know about basketball, about boxing, anything involving sports.
Thank you. Dadin, we're so happy na pumunta ka dito sa munti namin tahanan sa Courtside Daddy.
No, it's my privilege. It's my honor. I've heard about Courtside Daddy. I know that Benji Paras has come over to the studio to do an interview. JV Casio also.
Yes.
Jude Roque, my good friend.
Yeah.
All of those guys have some better roots. I'm wondering, where is the color red? Hinahanap ko yung kulay na
Dadin, tinanggal
na red
muna
dito.
namin kasi green yung guest namin.
Yes, tama. Thank you. Nakita ko nga, green na green tayo.
Dadin, how are you? What's the latest with you right now?
Well, I'm still very, very active. You know, I've been involved in sports for so many years. As a broadcaster, I've been involved since 1986. But even before that, I remember in 1979, I was a guest on a TV coverage of the visiting Washington Bullets team. At that time, they were called the Bullets. Now they're called the Wizards. And they just won the NBA championship. They played a PBA selection. And I remember I was a guest panelist on that coverage. But as a regular panelist of the PBA, I started in 1986. My very first published article as a sports writer was in 1972, and you can count the years of how many years I've been involved. I've been writing a sports column in the Philippine Star since 1987, and someone just whispered to me a few days ago that my column, A Sporting Chance, is probably the longest running sports column in the history of Philippine journalism, and for that, I'm honored. I'm flattered, but I'm also flabbergasted. I never expected I'd be writing this long.
Yung Sporting Chance, Dadin, it started with the Philippine Star already?
Hindi. Not
okay.
actually. This was the metamorphosis of a Sporting Chance. I actually began a Sporting Chance writing for a newspaper called Business Day. You know, I'm a very loyal person. When I'm attached to an institution, I try to be as loyal to that institution as much as I can.
Yeah.
As well as I expect that institution to be loyal to me. So my very first publication that I wrote for was the Daily Express Network. And the magazine I wrote for was called Express Sports in 1972. My first published article was about Lenny Wilkens. At that time, he was the playing coach of the Seattle Supersonics. Right. And it so happened that in 1972, on my very first trip to the U.S., I was a student grantee of a U.S. Department of State privilege to tour the U.S. along with about 11 other Asian student leaders. So we
Wow.
went from different universities, different states, from Hawaii to Boston to Washington, D.C., to New York, etc. And during the course of that 3-month program, our tour director asked, any one of you interested in the NBA? And at that time, I was just a big fan of the
Yeah.
NBA. And I said, yes, I'm a big fan. And then he said, well, we're in Seattle now, and my friend has a connection with the Seattle Supersonics. You know, at that time, Sonics were still alive. Now they're known as the OKC Thunder, right?
Yes.
So sabi ko, aba, okay, baka pwede kong makausap si Lenny Wilkins.
Yeah.
Eh, hero ko yun eh. You know, he was wearing number 19. So I said, where can I meet him? So he set up a meeting at the Seattle Tacoma Airport. And at that time, wala pa mga lounge. And the players were just seated on seats right by the boarding gate. So pumasok ako, nandun yung mga players. I remember Don Coaches, Dick Snyder, some of the players of the Seattle Supersonics were there. Spencer Haywood wasn't there, not yet his time. But I went up to Lenny Wilkins, and I remember he was wearing like a buckskin jacket. At ang dala-dala ko nun is a Brownie camera, you know, that doesn't exist anymore. I think you might be able to see some in a junk shop. Pero yung Brownie camera ko, so I was clicking pictures. Kalahin ba ba? Lahat, ang tawag nila doon, overexposed. Walang nakuhang magandang retrato ni Lenny Wilkins. But I had an interview, and when I came back to the Philippines, sabi ko, sayang naman yung pag-uusap namin ni Lenny Wilkins if nobody knows about it. So we wrote a story. I wrote a story about it. I already had a background in journalism. I was the not the sports editor. I was the campus school paper editor when I was in grade school, in high school. So I had that background.
Yeah.
So I wrote an article about the interview with Lenny Wilkins, and I went to the Daily Express office one Saturday morning. Sabi ko, nung papasok ko, ba't walang tao rito? Not realizing that in a newspaper office, nobody goes in the morning. They all come in to work in the afternoon because in the morning is when they get their stories, right? So, pero there was one man who was seated in a desk. So siya yung pinuntahan ko. His name was Teddy Barbano, the late Teddy Barbano. At sabi ko, sir, meron na akong ginawang article dito about Lenny Wilkins, isang NBA playing coach. Pwede ko bang maisubmit sa inyo? Binasa niya. Tapos sabi niya, editor ako ng Express Sports Magazine. I'll have this published. I'll pay you 25 pesos. Mamalaking pera yun during that time. Sabi ko, bakit 25 pesos? Eh, at that time, pwede ka nang manood ng sine, meron ka ng pang jeep, at
What
saka
was the
pang
dollar?
bus.
What was the dollar rate back then? Compared to
Gee,
peso?
I don't know. Maybe it might have been something like I don't know, maybe 5-1 or 2-1 or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, the cost of living, of course, was very much lower at that time. So
Ang laki na no, nung 25 pesos.
25
Yeah,
pesos
oo.
got me a date in the movie, got me a dinner, got me transportation, and ano pa ba? Yeah, all of those things. Tapos with marami pang sobra. So they asked me if I could write articles every week, which I did because Sports Weekly was an Express Sports. Express Sports was a weekly magazine. And then when Express Sports closed down after about a year and a half, they said, why don't you write a column for the broadsheet? At that time, the broadsheet was the Daily Express. So this was 1972. This was the martial law years. The only newspaper around was the Daily Express. So I was honored that I would be able to write a sports column at that time. My sports column was called Punchline. It wasn't about boxing. It was just, anything to do with sports. But I wanted to always have like a punchline at the end of the column. And eventually, Daily Express was phased out, and then I started to write for different magazines: TV Times, Entertainment Now, Mr. and Ms. And all the time I was writing about sports. And then I got an offer to write a column for Business Day, and I wrote the column A Sporting Chance then. That was about 1984, and that lasted till 1987. Business Day closed down. As I told you, I'm a very loyal person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't leave any publication unless they told me to leave. So I got a call from the publisher, Mr. Raul Locsin, the late Raul Locsin, and he told me, Quinito, we're going to close down Business Day because of labor problems, but the next day we're going to open as Business World. And so I told myself, wait a minute. At that time, I had an offer to write for the Philippine Star, which had just opened. So I told myself, well, this is my way of moving out of the Business Day was like a tabloid, although it was a very high-level, high-class, top-tier tabloid. So I left that newspaper to join the Philippine Star because Business Day had actually closed down. So since 1997, I've been with the Philippine Star. Yeah.
And Sporting Chance and the rest was history.
Yeah, Sporting Chance continued and continues to this day. I write it 5 days a week, and I also write about 13 byline articles a month for the Philippine Star. Yeah.
We are a fan, Dadine. So ever since in the 90s, Philippine Star, then punta kagad kami sa sports page, the sports section, and then talaga you and Bill Velasco, yan yung mga naabutan namin
Yes.
Sa 90s.
Well, sana hanggang ngayon.
Yes, of course.
And
it's online na. I can read
yes,
it online.
it is online. It is online. Every 12 midnight, doon pumapasok lahat yung mga articles that will come out in the edition of the broadsheet. Yeah.
Dadine, let's go back to the start. Let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
So, at least we knew already where Sporting Chance, the beginnings of Sporting Chance, your journalism. But what made you love journalism at the siguro grade school ba to, high school ba to? Saan nanggaling yung passion mo sa writing?
Well, Ryu, I think it's in the blood. In our family, especially from my mother's side, we've had writers, authors of books, the Ataviado family, which is related to my mother, the late Marina Meneses, and my uncle, Quinciano Ataviado, was a long-time writer of the Manila Bulletin. So somehow it's in the blood, and I love to read, and when you like to read, somehow the passion will translate into you also wanting to write. And so when I was a boy, actually when I was about maybe 8 years old, my father was a big sports fan. My father used to play basketball for Letran and for Cerizal in the NCAA.
Nice.
And he would always watch basketball on TV. He would sometimes bring me to basketball games, and we would watch games together. And what I would do is, after watching a basketball game or a boxing show on TV, after, I would go to my room, kukunin ko yung typewriter, gagawa ko ng storya. Yung napanood kong live.
Ilang taong ka na to, Dadine?
Siguro mga 8 years old, 9 years old.
Grabe.
Gano'n. So, ang ginagawa ko, pagkatapos kong panoorin yung, let's say, boxing, so pupunta ako sa typewriter, gagawa ko ng storya tungkol sa kung ano napanood ko. The following day, yung live event na pinunod ko sa TV will be recounted in the newspaper. So, itatapat ko ngayon yung kung anong sinulat ko at saka kung ano yung lumabas sa dyaryo. So, parang I will compare.
Yeah.
Sabi ko, ano yung kulang na hindi ko nagawa? Kasi professional writer
8 years old?
Yeah, so
Oh my.
hanggang ngayon, yung mga clippings doon, nasa akin pa. Yeah, I cut out those articles that I wrote, tapos I put it in a scrapbook beside the newspaper account of that event that I wrote about. So, it got to be a habit. And then when I got to grade school, naging school paper editor ako. Sa high school, ganun din. College, unfortunately, hindi ako naging editor ng aming school organ because I got involved with the student council. So,
in politics naman in college.
I was a student leader.
Yeah.
And so I was involved especially in the external affairs of the school, NUSP, and the other school organizations at that time. Yeah.
Wow. So, writer ever since 8 years old, Dadine. You mentioned also earlier that your daddy was a former basketball player.
Yes.
You played basketball too before?
Well, I tried to play basketball, but even in the intramurals sa Lasal, bangko ako eh. So sabi ko, paano ba to?
But you have the height,
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but I can tell you, I was the best dressed basketball player, even if I couldn't get any minutes because.
Yeah.
You know, my brother and my sisters, they all lived in the States. They would send me nice-looking socks, nice-looking shoes. Kanya, ako yung pinakamagarbong player dun sa amin team. But, you know, I guess, sa tiyaga, when I went to graduate school at the Asian Institute of Management, I was part of the school team. So I got a little bit better. And then, in fact, by the way, when I was in college playing intramurals, I remember I played against my son-in-law's father. My son-in-law is Mark Nangkayon. His father is Ted Nangkayon, who played for the Sambeda juniors. And he went on with Freddie Fong and Doy Escobar, Alex Maliksi, all of those guys from Sambeda went to Lasal along with Ted Nangkayon, who is my son-in-law's father. I played against him in intramurals. I saved the clip kasi I used to have a little newsletter when I was in college. So I remember I put together the box score. I saved that box score because I scored 10 points in that game. Bihirang-bihira kasi
May 3 points na ba nun?
Wala eh. Pero bihirang-bihira kasi makascore ako ng double figures. Kunya tinago ko yun. Pero tinalo kami ng engineering. Si Ted Nangkayon had, I think, 20 points in that game. Ang galing niya eh. But, you know, I always remember that. And then, later on, after college, I got involved with the sports writers team because we used to have a something like a media league. And so, I joined the sports writers team and then I became like a starter. Some of my teammates were Conrad Banal, who was a former Ateneo player, still very active as a journalist to this day. June Morales was also my teammate. We had good times playing in those leagues, and you know, I would score double figures more often than not.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit better.
But basketball, Dadin, ever since parang it was part of your life, it was part of your dad's life, and then you growing up and then being a writer up until now, right? So, Dadin, you mentioned Lasal. So, grade school to college, talagang true-blooded Lasalista.
That's right. Oh.
Si Dadin.
If you slice my arm, hindi
pula.
Red, hindi pula. Ang lalabas.
Grabe.
Verde ang lalabas.
Verde ang lalabas. During those times, Lasal was still part of the NCAA. So you would watch games of the NCAA?
Yes, I would. I would watch the games in the NCAA, and then I would cheer my good friend Miguel Bilbao and Doy Escobar, who came from Sabeda, was on a championship team with Miguel Bilbao. And then Alex Maliksi, as I mentioned, also from Sabeda. He was also part of our championship team. So we had...
This was
in the 1970s. 1971
so
and 1974. Lim Embeng, that's right. Yeah, Lim Embeng won 2 championships with LaSalle. So they were all my friends because we were classmates in many subjects. Si Miguel Bilbao, I double dated with him. I won't tell you who our dates were because we didn't end up getting married to our dates. So, but yeah, we had a lot of good times at that period of my life. But I was always a big supporter of LaSalle. However, after I graduated and I went to AIM, and then I went to work for an investment house, which later on became a universal bank. I was there for 10 years. I sort of drifted away from college sports, and I kind of like focused on professional sports. And the one who got me my big break was Bobong Velez, who was a LaSalle and Ateneo alumnus. And at that time, Bobong Velez started Vintage Enterprises.
Ayun na.
Yes, and he had a big concept before of getting LaSalle and Ateneo players to hold exhibition games for charity. And, you know, this became a big thing. This was about 1974.
Okay.
So he had Francis Arnaiz going up against Lim Embeng in one-on-one competitions. And he had all these ideas, and he was a promoter. He was an impresario, and you gotta tip off your hat to that guy because he had a lot of wonderful promotional ideas. And then eventually he won the rights to broadcast the PBA on TV with Vintage Enterprises. And then he also got me to be one of his panelists. But when I was working for the bank, I really couldn't come out on TV that much. In fact, hardly ever. Although I continued to write, but working in a bank is a very taxing job. So, but in 1986, I was offered to run an operation in Tarlac, and it allowed me some time to come out on TV because I would spend time in the province, but I would also spend time in Manila, and I was able to get some time at night, especially since the base of our operations was in Tarlac. I was able to come out on TV now on a little bit of a regular basis. My boss at that time was Mr. Danding Cojuangco, also a lover of sports.
Yes.
So it was very easy for me to ask his permission to come out on TV for sports because he would end up watching anyway. So at least he knew where his employee was at night doing sports on TV. Yeah.
Dean, since you mentioned Boss Danding, I think your relationship with him started from the 70s pa.
No, it was actually in the 1980s. My
80s,
relationship with
okay.
Mr. Cojuangco, my gosh, that was really by accident. I was already writing my sports column at that time. And one of my topics in a sports column was the use of naturalized players all over the world. And I was able to find out through vast research. And mind you, at that time, wala pang internet.
Wala pa.
Wala pang Wikipedia, okay? But I had my own sources. I was able to get books. I was able to track a network of different sources of information for me. So I was able to find out that France used a former NBA player, which at that time was illegal, Robert Reed. I was able to find out Australia had a player from Davidson College named Rocky Crosswhite. Davidson College, by the way, is where Steph Curry played. And then I found that in Spain, they actually pioneered the use of naturalized players. Back in the 1960s, they had two players named Clifford Loic and Wayne Brabender. So I was saying, these teams, they're already so strong, yet they've become stronger because they're using naturalized players.
Yeah.
So I was saying, ba't naman tayo hindi gumamit ng naturalized players? Kung may gusto bang magpa-naturalize, bagyan na natin. So Mr. Cojuangco liked that idea. And one day, his assistant called me. I was working in the bank, mind you, at that time, 1980. And his assistant called me and said, Kinito, Mr. Cojuangco would like to talk to you. You know, Mr. Cojuangco is such a big titan. You know, and when he told me that Mr. Cojuangco wanted to talk to me, you know what my reaction was? Bakit? Anong ginawa ko? That was just my reaction, honestly. And then the meeting with Mr. Cojuangco was supposed to be held one night. When I showed up for the meeting, wala si Mr. Cojuangco, pero yung aide niya nandun. At sabi niya sa akin, naku, hindi makakadating si Mr. Cojuangco sa meeting nyo. That's okay. Kung kailan siya libre, sabi ko. That was at 10 o'clock at night after a dinner kasi that I had with my family. So he said, pero ang sabi ni Mr. Cojuangco, sa Calcutta lang kayo mag-meeting. Ha? Sabi ko, sa Calcutta? Doon ka ba mag-meeting? Oh, because the Philippines was playing China in an Asian Basketball Confederation Championship in Calcutta in 1982, I think it was. And so,
may passport ka na ba nun?
Yes, may passport ako. Pero sabi sa akin ng assistant, ba't hindi mo tawagin yung secretary, Mr. Cojuangco? Kilala ka. Kanya, and she was the one who was able to track you down. So the next morning, tinawagan ko. Sure enough, no, she was she was someone who knew me very well. Her name is Alice Alvarez. Alice, she got married to Bacani, so it's now Alice Alvarez Bacani. So she told me, yes, I have your ticket here. You can claim your ticket and you can go to Calcutta. Why don't you take the weekend off and watch the Philippines play China? So I went to Calcutta. To make a long story short, I met Mr. Cojuangco for the very first time. We watched the game together. Tatalo ang Philippines. I remember Franz Pumarin was in that team. I met Ron Jacobs for the first time.
Okay.
And then after the game, Mr. Cojuangco said, all of us, let's have Chinese dinner. So I went to the Chinese dinner, and after the dinner, pinuntahan ko si Mr. Cojuangco, Sir, ano ho yung nais niyong pag-usapan? Kasi pinapunta ho niyo ako dito para pag-usapan. At sabi niya sa akin, sa Manila lang tayo mag-usap. And what an introduction to a really great man and a wonderful person with a really huge heart and a passion for sports. So one thing led to another. I ended up being offered by Mr. Cojuangco in 1985 to start a microfinance operation because of my finance background. I spent 10 years in a bank, and then in 1985, he asked me to run or start an operation in Tarlac for microfinance. At that time, microfinance was not even, that term was not even used yet. He just had the idea of trying to provide credit to small businessmen without collateral. And if there was a system that we could think of to be able to make it work. So our system was microfinance. And several years later, there was a World Microcredit Conference in Washington, D.C. Mr. Cojuangco sent me and my assistant, and we both went, and it opened up a new world for me and also for microfinance. And I worked 30 years in that field for Mr. Cojuangco. And, and maybe I can show something here in this newspaper. After 30 years, because of the work that we did in Tarlac,
this is the camera.
Okay, this is the newspaper of Tarlac, and it says here in the headline, Quinito is Tarlac's adopted son. So, this was one of the most memorable moments of my life when Tarlac gave me this recognition. And, my wife, Menchu, has been my supporter, biggest supporter all these years. She was there. Our daughter, Christina, was there.
Yeah.
And my brother, who happened to be in the country from the U.S. visiting, also was there. So it was a wonderful, wonderful occasion. And I will always cherish that memory when they made me an adopted son. Only 4 adopted sons in the history of Tarlac, and I was one of them.
Wow. Dean, parang yung being adopted son, para siyang keys to the city. Parang they're giving you that recognition.
Yes,
diba?
parang and that's the reason why I vote in Tarlac. And all these years that I spent in Tarlac. One of the milestone projects that we did in Tarlac out of our microfinance operations was we actually sent over 2,000 public school teachers in Tarlac to school for education, to get or to gain master's and doctoral degrees in education and with LaSalle diplomas, because I'm a believer that no institution can work for the greater good if you're trying to do it alone. I always think of a team. It's like in a basketball team. It's like in a boxing team. You have one boxer inside the ring, but that boxer would not be the fighter that he wants to be if he didn't have a coach, a strength and conditioning man, and the whole team behind. So my concept has always been, my philosophy has always been, you work as a team. Nobody is a hero by himself. So with that, I partnered with the Department of Education, Tarlac State University, De La Salle University, the Department of Local Governments, the government of Tarlac. We all got together and put together this project. We funded it. This was a 42 million peso project, all funded by our microfinance operations without a single contribution from anyone. Yeah. And we had
That's why Tarlac recognized you?
Yeah. We also had that was called Project Free. And we had another project called Project Hope that put out-of-school youth and maybe not so young people to give them opportunities to get jobs by linking up this time in partnership with TESDA. And I also linked up with private corporations to be able to provide employment for all these out-of-school youth and out-of-school not-so-youth individuals to get jobs after their graduation.
So speaking of LaSalle, Dadin, we also know that Boss Danding is one of the if not the number one supporter of the LaSalle Green Archers since the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And you as well, as the current team manager of LaSalle.
Well, I'm actually one of five.
One of five,
Yes,
yeah.
and I'm probably the least of the five because, the four others are...
You're just humble, Dadin. Pwede ka nga tumakbong politiko sa Tarlac.
So, gotta give credit to the ones who really sponsored the team because my contribution is I'm kind of like the collector. So, I gather sponsors for the team.
Right.
I don't have the resources as my four colleagues, but I'm thankful that my four colleagues welcomed me to be part of the management group. So, I also provide a lot of basketball knowledge for the group because our group, we're not hands-on with the team. We're actually the supporters, the main sponsors of the team, and then from our network, then we try to bring in other sponsors to be able to finance the operations of our team. So, for instance, I was the one who brought in Topex Robinson, so that was a story in itself, and then. Each of our managers has its own responsibility. There are individuals who are involved in recruiting. So there are individuals who've brought in players like Kian Baclaan and Jacob Cortez, Luis Pablo, who came from LaSalle Green Hills, went to UP, and then went back to LaSalle.
Yeah.
So I'd like to mention that our managers are all top-tier businessmen, Mr. Terry Capistrano, Mr. Rafi Villavicencio, Justice Andy Reyes, Justice of the Supreme Court, and then Attorney Man Scarpio. So those are our four cornerstones of our management group. Ako yung parang asungot.
And you're just being humble. Kaya ba successful lang LaSalle? 5 team manager. Producer Von, kita mo? Ganyan ka,
At saka teamwork.
And teamwork, yes.
That's always been a hallmark of everything that I do. Everything's got to be done as a team. Nobody can be a hero by himself.
Tama.
Even in our family, I don't do the decisions by myself. My wife doesn't do the decisions by herself, but we always work together as a team.
And that's the secret recipe to any successful team is the teamwork talaga.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Dadin, so talking about LaSalle, since I know our viewers here knows yung PBA mo, of course, yung being a boxing analyst. Let's go there later. No?
Okay.
Speaking of the LaSalle program, so you saw from the NCA and then transferring to the UAAP. When did you start being a manager in LaSalle?
When Mr. Kawanko got to be involved. You see, Mr. Kawanko was in exile for several years. When he came back, it took a few years before he took over the mantle of taking care of the LaSalle men's basketball team.
Dadin?
I would say about 2011, maybe 2013,
Okay.
around that time. And in fact, let me show you a picture. I have a picture there of when we won a championship. And
one.
yes, it's rather big. And
Ayan.
here we are. Let me show this picture.
Ayan,
Here
no?
is- I don't know if you can see this, but this is a picture of Mr. Kawanko. And I'm shown, this was after we won the championship in 2013. We beat USC in overtime in game number 3.
Sila JV Casio ba to? 2013?
No, it was Almon Vasotros. And it was
okay.
also Jeron Teng.
Ayun.
Yes.
Oo.
So this was our team that won the championship. This is one of 2 championships that we won with Mr. Kawanko. This was when I started to get heavily involved. But at that time,
So
Mr.
about 12 years already. Dadin.
Yes,
No?
yes.
Oo.
But then, after Mr. Kawanko passed, then we lost our, I would say, main provider. And so from there, the management group got reconstituted, and we said, well, we'll have to stand on our own. We'll have to live on our own without Mr. Kawanko. But we wanted to do it for Mr. Kawanko, in his memory, in his legacy. So up to this day, we always consider ourselves to be the ones who are still carrying the flag of LaSalle for Mr. Kawanko. Yeah.
Galing. So how many championships did you win starting from 2013?
We've won, was it 2 championships? 2013, and I think we won, that was with Jonas Auler, and then we won one with Aldin Ayo,
Yeah.
and then we won one with Topex Robinson.
So
we
3.
won 3. Yeah.
No? So kasi in the past 12 years of the UAAP, it's been dominated by LaSalle, UP, and Ateneo.
Actually, Ateneo dominated the UAP,
Yeah.
and LaSalle has made it to the finals the last 2 years. So we won the championship 2 years ago, but last season we also went to the finals, but we lost to UP. UP is a very, very strong and very well coached team, and it's always a big challenge, not only for LaSalle, for any team to beat UP. We've brought in a lot of very valuable pieces this season, hoping to be able to put up a challenge against the UP. We certainly want to regain the championship.
Yeah.
But now we have Mason Amos. We have, as we mentioned earlier, Jacob Cortez, Kian Baclaan. We have Luis Pablo. And Ryle Melencio, who came in from Zobel, who had been injured for 2 years. But we're bringing him for the first time
Back in the
on the
group.
roster. Yeah. And of course, Michael Phillips is still with us. We have Earl
it's his
Abadam.
last year?
It is his last year. We're also bringing back Bright Nwankwo as
you're
our
important.
foreign student athlete. He didn't play with us last season. It was Henry Agunane, but Henry is recovering from an ACL injury. So we've brought back Bright. And we have JC Makalalag. We also have Kines, Gillian Kines from LaSalle Juniors. We also have LeBron James Daep from Perpetual Juniors. So those guys are going to be contributing.
Lakas nyo.
Well, we're hoping that with our lineup, we are able to get the chemistry that we need.
In the preseason, Dean, di ba, you joined Asia Basket, then I think you joined Pinoy Liga.
Yes.
And then recently the World University Games.
Yes.
What was the standing of LaSalle in the preseason?
We got second place in the World University. We were the defending champions. We lost to Korea in the finals by 10 points. In the semifinals of the Phil Oil, we lost to UP. Before that, we had beaten UP, and in fact, that loss to UP was the first loss that we've had in the preseason to a UAAP team. So we had swept. I would say we might have played about 15 games against UAP teams, including Ateneo, NU, UST. We won them all, except that one loss to UP in the semifinals of Phil Oil.
Yeah, Phil Oil, yeah. I
but,
watched that.
Yeah,
Classic game. Grabe.
Yeah, it was a good game. And again, very formidable ang UP. But Raider Mogat hit us with 2 big 3-point shots towards the end, and that killed us.
Sa harapan ni Jacob Cortez yun.
Yeah,
Nakita
so
ko.
we need to play better defense in the perimeter, especially since UP is a hot shooting perimeter team. Yeah.
You are prime, I think, again to enter the finals, Dean. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah, we're certainly hoping and we're praying for the best.
Yeah.
We don't want to raise any expectations because we don't want to put pressure on our players.
Yeah.
We always aim high. That has always been something that we want to do, and we challenge ourselves to be better, and we think that we've put together a lineup that can compete for the championship. But we're going to take it one game at a time. We know it's going to be a long season. Our UAP season will begin on September 20, and that's also something new because I don't think it's been announced. But
September what?
20.
20.
Yes, and that'll be I think that's a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken.
Malapit na.
Yes, palapit-lapit na.
Yeah.
And for all those who are tuned in, listening to your program, Courtside Daddy, you heard it first on Courtside Daddy. UAP season basketball will begin September 20. That will be the men's division.
Let's talk about the UAP, Daddy.
Yeah.
Kasi everybody's excited and looking forward with this podcast. Because LaSalle, ever since joining the UAP, you've been lording it over winning championships from the 90s, and then you have a four-peat, I think, with Ren entering the early 2000s, and then 2010s, and then presently you're year in, year out, you're one of the most, if not the best collegiate team in Philippine basketball. And actually, 2 years ago, you've beaten PBA teams. Ganyan
Yes.
kayo kalalim.
Uh-huh.
'Di ba? So, this is also an issue not just in the UAP but also in the NCAA. When it comes to recruitment, hindi ba nagtatampo yung ibang schools kasi lahat ng players natin kinukuha ng Lasal eh. Ano
Actually,
bang secret? Ano bang secret ng Lasal?
actually, the reputation of getting players from other teams is not with Lasal. Although Mason
Sino? Sino, Nadine? Sino?
I feel so bad because one of our good players whom we recruited out of Bulacan, someone whom we discovered in the Palarong Pambansa, and whom we had nurtured and we had tried to develop, Raso Logana, was taken away from us with a better offer from UP. It's really a pity because we were hoping that he could stay with us.
Yeah.
To this day, UP continues to talk to some of our players. But it's part of the course, I guess.
Part of the game. Diba?
Yeah. But I just feel that there should be some kind of code of ethics. We don't condone piracy. Then you ask the question, kinuha niyo si Mason Amos. You ask Mason himself, kung ano yung storya, kung paano siya napunta sa Lasal. Siya kasi yung lumapit eh. He wasn't happy with the way things were coming along for his career in Ateneo. So he saw the development of Kevin Kiambao in Lasal, and he wanted to see how he could follow in that kind of a path. Because nagsama sila sa Gilas eh. So, siya ang lumapit kay Topex Robinson, and so, of course, we welcomed him. There was no money involved. It was just a matter of providing him a pathway for growth. And, he brought his brother, CJ Amos, alongside with him. But in the course of training for this coming season, CJ Amos nagpaalam sa amin because sabi niya, he didn't think he was going to have the growth that his brother was having in Lasal. So FEU offered him, and we said sure. So FEU got CJ Amos, yung kapatid ni Mason, and he will be playing for FEU this coming season. Now Luis Pablo came from UP, but remember he actually came from Lasal Green Hills. So also another player who sort of came back to the fold. And what we are proud of in Lasal is that many of our players are what you call Lasal homegrown players. Jacob Cortez and his brother Mikey, both of them have Lasal backgrounds, aside from the fact that their father played for Lasal.
Yeah.
And then Baclaan played for Zobel. I mean, he studied at Zobel. And then Luis Pablo, JC Macalalad, Kines, those guys are all from Lasal. Ethan Alyan is also from Lasal. And, we're proud of the fact that we're bringing in these Lasal homegrown players to the fold. And we're not just getting players from anywhere to prop up our team. Yeah.
Actually, yung background kasi ng Lasal Dadin ever since, let's just say, since BJ Manalo time, diba? Or maybe even further, maybe Tyrone Bautista or Don Aliado. When it comes to recruitment talaga, doesn't matter NCAA, US. So, kayo ngayon, yung setup nyo na 5 team managers, how hard yung parang coordination between team managers? Kasi like most schools na na-interview ko, or at least I know, isa lang yung team manager.
Well, actually, the definition of our team manager is we have a general manager, and his name is Awu Lacson. So he takes care of the team. And within the network of the coaching staff, we have also other coordinators who help in the management of the team. So kami as team managers, we are actually sponsors. We're actually logistics providers. So we're not really hands-on. I mean, we don't go to every practice. We don't look at the... of course, we check on the players. I mean, we're heavily invested in the team. But we do have a general manager who takes care of things. But... we are there to be the biggest supporters of the team. And that is our role. And kami, our management team, works as one. We have sometimes different opinions, but we all get together and then we come out with an opinion. Even in the choice of coach, there were many other candidates before Topex Robinson came out as our candidate. I brought him in and I pitched for him, but there were other candidates. But in the end, the management team all decided, okay, let's go with Topex. And I thought it was a very, very good decision for us.
When it comes to like player development, player recruitment, si Coach Topex ba meron din siyang say like, team managers, I like this guy. Can we?
He has all the say.
Oh.
He has all the say. Coach Topex, I mean, he's the guy who guides the team on the floor. And we give him complete leeway. If, for instance, we are approached by someone to say, "Oy, magaling itong player na to," we refer that player to Coach Topex, and he makes a decision whether he should make the team or not.
Ayun.
So, everything is with Coach Topex. He's given full control of the team, and then we have a team manager who guides him.
And you just extended Coach Topex, right?
Yes, he's been extended for another 3 years. We're very happy with his performance, and you can see, it's not just on the floor. We're the only team in the league where before a game, the coach and the players form a circle, holding hands, and we pray.
Yeah.
We pray. We make the sign of the cross. We say, "Saint John Baptist de La Salle, live Jesus in our hearts forever," and that happens on the floor before a game. And even in the dressing room, before a game, Coach Topex turns off the lights and has one small light lit for everyone to just meditate and soak in the moment. Clear out all the distractions. Everything is blacked out in the dugout. So everyone is just immersed in focusing on the game. And those are the little things that Coach Topex has instilled in the team. And also in Japan, when we played, I thought it was a great leadership example by Michael Phillips. At the end of every game that we played in Japan, Michael lined up all the players in one line, facing the crowd, and bowed. You know, the typical Japanese fashion of bowing.
Yeah.
And after bowing one side, they went to the other side, all four sides of the stadium. They did that. And then after the championship game, which we lost, we sang the alma mater. And the crowd, the Japanese crowd, I mean, heavily applauded because it was such a wonderful act of sportsmanship and a gesture of gratitude to the school. Our brother president was with us in the stands. And, actually, I'll tell you, I felt like crying.
Yeah.
Not just because we lost, but also because of that gesture of sportsmanship. And you have to be proud if you have a team like that.
That's culture and tradition for you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think I saw Coach Topex do that first in Lyceum.
Okay.
He made Lyceum like an instant contender in the NCAA.
Yeah.
Lyceum went back-to-back finals with CJ Perez, the Marcelino twins. And that culture, I think he brought it in La Salle. And then yun, champion.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oo.
His culture and then the culture of La Salle sort of got together.
Ganda.
And it was a beautiful bonding.
Parang perfect marriage.
Yeah.
Dadine. Dadine, ang dami nating pwedeng pag-usapan in terms of La Salle. But I want to touch some topics with the collegiate scene. No?
Okay.
Kasi you mentioned earlier the naturalization during Boss Danding's time in the Philippine team. You were the one who pitched in the idea of naturalization. Because right now in collegiate sports, naturalization or FSAs, in the UAAP, they are allowed. In the NCAA, well, the NCAA was the first one somehow to make it fashionable, getting like African players. Ekwe with San Beda.
Sudan Daniel.
Yeah, Sudan Daniel. And then everybody followed suit. And then I think it was 5 years ago when the NCAA said, stop tayo.
And Letran never got an FSA.
And Letran and San Sebastian.
That's right, yeah.
And then
and you
UAAP,
have to commend them for that.
Yeah, and UAAP, said, no, okay lang. Kasi it's part of the development of our bigs. When they go to the PBA, they're used to banging big bodies already. What's your take on that?
My opinion is ban foreign student athletes. I don't believe in them. We do have a foreign student athlete, and we're very happy with Bright Tuangco, as well as Henry Agunane. We're very happy with Ben Mbala. For the years before Ben Mbala, we tried out Taye Samuel, and then we also had Marko Batricevic at one time from Serbia. But, I don't believe in the recruitment of foreign student athletes. I feel that collegiate leagues should be for Filipinos, for them to grow, for the bigs to be able to develop. Because, when you have a dominant foreign student athlete like a Benambala, the whole team will revolve around him. And I just feel it's a disservice to our local players because nawawala yung kanilang pagkakataon to be able to shine because yung focus of attention nandun sa malalaking foreign student athletes. And not only that, and I don't mean to be discriminatory.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, this is a league that we have. Foreign students are welcome to enroll in any school. They can be students. We're not discriminating against them. But we don't want them to play in a sport like basketball or any sport for that matter. Because I just feel that in the Philippine situation, locals have to be developed. And I don't agree with foreign student athletes playing. Although LaSalle has foreign student athletes because it is allowed and we need to be competitive because other teams have foreign student athletes, I disagree with the use. And I'm hoping that someday that they be not allowed. I really believe that. And a footnote to that is, I just feel that the foreign student athletes are, well, most of them at least, I can't say all, they're just plain mercenaries. They're professional imports. The guys who are making money are their agents. The agents go to one school and then peddle their imports, foreign student athletes, so-called. One school pitted against the other, looking for the best kind of offer. We're a college league. We're not a professional league. So what are these guys doing? They're being used as imports, and that's not fair at all. What example are we going to show to our locals when you know that this import is getting paid big bucks, commensurate to what a PBA player is getting? It's just so unfair, and it's a disservice. And I really feel very strongly about it. I think dapat tanggalin na itong mga foreign student athletes once and for all. Ang kumikita dito yung mga agents, pati din yung mga foreign student athletes, sinasamantala yung mga eskwelahan. And I think we have to put a stand to this.
Okay, Dadine, we respect your opinion, but let's just say, kasi what's happening right now, you said agents, diba? They are in college basketball right now. Not just college basketball, even high school.
Of course.
Nagkakaroon na ng agents
Of course.
for high school and college. So if your point is the foreign students are getting somehow lobbied or marketed to different schools, hindi ba sa local nangyayari din to?
Okay,
Because of the entrance of agents.
But if you notice, the agents of the foreign student athletes, they're foreigners as well. They're also Africans. Again, I don't want to be racist. I don't want to be discriminatory.
Yeah.
Yung mga Filipino so-called agents, they're looking to guide players, which is right. And, there are agents like Marvin Espiritu, Danny Espiritu. Those guys are good guys. They're looking for the welfare of these athletes. And if they're providing good guidance for these college players, even some high school players, I mean, because, you can't help it. There are some high school players who are very clearly future blue chip college players. So you want to be able to handle them and put them in the right direction early. So there are no prohibitions for agents to represent student athletes. But I think if we put a stop to these foreign student athletes, you will take out a big thorn on the side of collegiate sports. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, it's okay. At least we're getting more inputs with regards to this naturalization. Kasi yung actually palaking issue ngayon.
Actually, hindi naman sila naturalized eh.
Hindi,
kaya nga import sila eh.
Oo. Foreign student athletes daw yung tawag.
By the way, Obosa, who was a foreign student athlete of Ateneo, has been naturalized to play for the Malaysian national team.
And I think who's that player?
Well, Kwame.
Kwame.
Yes,
yeah,
he's become a naturalized Filipino. Yeah.
And Dadine, well, the other side of the coin with that, meron din namang mga foreign student athletes that graduates. So
yes, of course. Yeah.
Meron din naman na became, in corporate leaders, no? But maybe my take lang, yung agents ba, hindi ba sila overboarding na ngayon sa nangyayari? Kasi I have a case in point, and I like to get your honest opinion on this, Dadine. There's this player, Chris Hubilla. So he came from San Beda Red Cubs.
Right.
He was recruited by UP Diliman. So after a year, he made it to he made the NCAA Final Four against LaSalle Green Hills with Gagate, Pablo.
Then he went to
those
Mapua,
guys.
and now he's in JRU.
Yeah. So, but before that, he went to UP, and then I think he went a stop to Letran, and then after Letran, he went to Mapua, and then now he's in JRU. So
That's
5
right.
schools, I think, in 5 years. What's your take on that?
Well, he's being guided by his sponsors, and I think his sponsor used to support Mapua, but his sponsor has now moved to JRU. So he's gonna go where his sponsor is. So I mean it's a fact of life. But it's a free country. And you really can't. I think it's.
I'm just I'm just stating this case.
You're so right. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's incumbent on the school to provide a background of loyalty. So if you have a player who does not see the value of staying with a school and does not appreciate the education he gets from that school, that player is going to leave. He's going to go to the next school with a better offer.
But is it really just the education, Dadine?
Well, I'm saying that that's what it should be. Kami sa LaSalle, when we talk to a player, we talk to an athlete and try to recruit him, the first thing we tell him is the value of a LaSalle diploma. That it'll go far for you. And then we're also telling them that a playing career is not a forever thing. We're hoping that the LaSalle education will open doors for a playing career. But beyond that, you can rely on a LaSalle education for your future, beyond basketball, beyond sports. So that's something that we always explain to our athletes. But, sometimes the parents have a big say. And many of our players, the parents are, looking for, a quick return on their human investment. But that's how it is. It's a reality that we face. So we try to address it in the best possible way. We always try to instill values. We're very proud of our Lasallian values. We say that all Lasallians are Christian gentlemen. And, I think the different UAP schools also have that in mind. They also have values. They also have principles. And we're hoping that everybody puts principles and values at a very high level so that mawala na itong, yung wanton piracy and also the best offer.
How do we stop that, Dadine? Kasi even in the pro leagues, even the PBA is facing that. You know what I mean? Like,
well, in the pro leagues, Ryu, it's okay because it is a business. It is a livelihood. But if you're talking to collegiate players, iba yun eh. Iba yung turf. These guys are college students. So I don't think they should be treated as pros. Although many of them like to be treated as pros because they're looking at contracts. Now, with the PBA, it's like in the NBA. In the NBA, you have about 150 international players. Guys from Serbia, Slovenia, Greece. Those guys don't play in their national leagues. Wembanyama doesn't play in France. Jokic doesn't play in Serbia. Di ba? And Embiid doesn't play in Cameroon for sure because he's become a naturalized American. But what I'm saying is these guys don't play in their domestic leagues because they look for the better offers as professionals. That's why they go to the NBA. It's the same thing with us. Our best players like Dwight Ramos, Kevin Kiambao,
Yeah.
they go now overseas because the PBA cannot match the kind of
The
offers that they're
yeah.
getting.
So that's a good thing for you in terms of
For
development.
me, for me, I
the-
think it's
Mm.
you know it's called going for greener pastures.
Mhm.
But at the same time, a player, for instance, because the PBA has instituted a new rule, a 3-year rule, to say that once a player has played in the PBA and has been given an offer to renew, but he turns it down to play overseas, he will now get a 3-year ban. I think the reason
nga.
for that,
Yeah.
the reason for that is,
What's your take on that?
well, I think the PBA has its rights, the same way that the players have their rights.
Mhm.
It can't be one-sided. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
So the PBA has to protect its reputation. Same thing. The players have to protect their own livelihood,
Yeah.
their own welfare. So bigayan lang yan eh. The PBA is saying, look, if you're offered just 1-year contracts to play abroad, what's your downside? If you don't make it after 1 year, you go back to the PBA. You can't. Now you have to wait 2 more years.
Yeah.
So before you sign up in a foreign league,
Mag-isip-isip ka na.
pag-iisipan mo, sandali, ano ba to?
Ah.
Like, I'll have to say, Javi Gomez de Leaño is a great player. He had a terrific season with Terra Firma. Then he got signed in Korea for 1 year. After 1 year, he was cut. Now, where does he go? Can he go back to the PBA? I don't think he can. Because it's the ban is retroactive. So he can't, not unless there is an exception to those players who were signed up a year ago. But there are players like Juan Gomez de Leaño, for instance. He has never applied for the draft. He can apply for the draft now. He's been to Luxembourg. He's been to Japan. He's been to Korea. He's running out of options overseas. Why not just go back to the PBA? Or not go back. Why not try the PBA? Because I think he'll have a great career in the PBA. He's a great player. Juan Gomez de Leaño is a fantastic player, I would say. He would fit in any team in the PBA, and he will shine. Why not just apply for the draft? Where's he going to go? So now the players are thinking twice, which is what the PBA wants to do. They want to protect their reputation as well. Parang nangyayari ngayon, parang ginagawa na lang stepping stone ang PBA. Sabi ng PBA, konting respeto naman dyan. So ngayon, pag-iisipan nyo, the choice is yours. If you make a choice, may consequences yan. Anytime you make a choice, there are consequences, there are implications. So, tama din yung PBA, pero tama din yung player na pumuntang abroad to get a better offer.
Yeah.
But how many playing overseas opportunities are there for Filipinos? It's limited. You've got to be the caliber of a Carl Tamayo, SJ Balangel, KQ, Dwight Ramos, Bobby Ray Parks, AJ Edu, Kai Soto.
These players that you mentioned,
Yeah.
Dadin, these are future stars of Philippine basketball, if
Yes.
not the present.
Yes.
So, I have a question. Yung quality ba ng PBA games, hindi ba nag-dip konti? Because ito yung mga ine-expect ng mga masa na nanonood na, uy, si Bobby Parks magpi-PBA na, parang daddy niya. Gusto kong suportahan to. O yung mga sa Hinebra, ito na, sana madraft natin to si KQ. Ganon.
Actually, naglaro na si Parks sa PBA.
Oo, pero...
But he went.
Yeah.
Like Kiefer Ravena, he also played in the PBA.
Yeah.
But what about 30 Ravena? He's never applied for the draft.
Mm-mm.
He's been away for, has it been 5 years? He played in Japan. He has a player option to stay in Dubai. It's a pro league. He's averaging 3 minutes a game. He's not even averaging a point a game because he's playing in the Armenian League, which is a European league. And he doesn't get any playing time.
Iba yung competition doon.
Yung
I
mga,
could imagine.
yung mga teammate niya, mga NBA players. Davis Bertrand of Latvia is his teammate.
Wow.
How can you expect him to
Yeah.
get playing time? Kawawa naman, no? He can do it for the money, and
Yeah.
it's a nice exposure to be able to get practice time. But what about playing time? Maybe it's time for 30 to go to the PBA and apply for the draft. But, that's his decision. We can't second guess what's in the mind of a player. And we have to respect that. 30 has his own mind. I think he's a very mature person. He knows what he wants in life. And if he feels that his career path is to continue playing in Dubai, even if he doesn't get any minutes, so be it. But I feel that in the end, those guys are going to come back. Look at Andrew Bogut. When he finished playing in the NBA, he went back to Australia and he played.
Yeah.
He played. Pau Gasol also went back after the NBA. He
Right.
played in the Spanish League.
And Mark.
He went back. And Mark as well. So, ganun yan eh. I expect those players to come back to the Philippines and play. And we'll welcome them. We'll welcome them. Now,
course.
as far as your point of sayang, wala nga itong mga quality players, I think in the Philippines, there's just so much talent. Ang daming magagaling na player. So, and not everybody naman can be accommodated overseas. So, I think we're going to see in this draft, especially since the PBA has asked the UAAP to allow graduating seniors and one-and-done players of the UAAP to apply for the draft ahead of time.
Same as the NCAA.
Like the NCAA.
Yeah.
Parang mas progressive pa nga ang NCAA with ban on foreign student athletes and then allowing graduating seniors to apply for the PBA draft. If that happens, Michael Phillips is going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. And I can see it. He's such an outstanding player and also a true leader.
Future Gilas.
Yeah, he actually played already for the Philippines in the SEA Games. But I'm trying to talk to the to the SBP rather. I've spoken with the executive director, Erica D. I've given a copy of the passport of Michael Phillips. He got his passport at the age of 20. But apparently FIBA is looking kindly at foreigners born abroad who played in a country that they choose to represent. College. So, kanya si QMB played college in the Philippines, got himself considered as a local. Ganun din si Greg Slaughter and Chris Newsom. Those are all exceptional cases. Maybe Michael Phillips can be one. I'm hoping.
I think he has all the tools.
He certainly has,
diba?
yeah. And not only that, nakakasalita pa ng Tagalog.
Oo,
diba?
diba?
Pati hapon nga, nakakasalita eh. Ang galing.
With regards to, let's say, the Kai Soto situation, Dadine, kasi I've been getting, different feedbacks with this naturalization issues, diba? Hindi ba, kasi si Kai Soto, he studied abroad. So, ang mindset natin, pag Pinoy naman nag-study in the US, wini-welcome naman nila.
He studied naman Ateneo.
Yeah, but here, when it comes to foreign students, parang may mindset yung iba na, bakit ganun? Ba't si Kai Soto? Dapat iban din ng US, dapat puro US players lang.
How many teams are there in the NCAA Division 1? Over 200. How many teams are there in the UAP? 8.
So the opportunities, that's your...
Yeah. I think, we're a third world country. US is a first world country. So I think for a developing country like the Philippines, we should give more opportunities for developing players.
Okay.
Ganun lang yun. It's not being discriminatory. It's a matter of giving an opportunity. In the US, there are over 200 Division 1 schools. There are over 200 Division 2 schools. Meron pa Division 3. Marami kang pagpipilian. So, there are slots for every player on this planet in the US.
Every nationality.
Yeah, and for you to be able to get there, of course, that's a challenge.
Of course.
Because the high level of competition.
Yeah. So, Dadine, ang question ko ngayon, you mentioned, 8 teams lang sa UAAP eh.
Baka 9 coming after this season.
Is it time for the UAAP to have an expansion school?
Well, I think Sabeda is going to be joining the UAAP soon. Am I right?
I don't know. You tell me, Dadine. Well, because in the NCAA, we've seen the development from Ateneo Lasal in the NCAA, then they went to the UAAP. And then NCAA in the past 10 years welcomed new members as well, like Lyceum, Eyak, and Arellano. Don't you think, sabi mo nga, 8 teams lang yung UAP, don't you think it's time?
To merge?
No, to have an expansion.
To have an expansion? I'm always for it. Because the more schools, the more opportunities for players to enroll, get a good education, and have a playing career. So there's talk that San Beda might join the season after this. I'm actually all for merging UAAP and NCAA. Why not? To have one Philippine college champion of a Division 1 level. That would be nice.
But they tried it already before, like the PCCL, di ba? Ano bang nangyayari? Bakit hindi natin makuha yung formula ng March Madness?
Yung PCCL kasi, schools don't really give it that much importance because at the end of the season, when they have the PCCL, some of the players don't even play anymore in the PCCL. So, iba na din yung mga lineup na pinapasok nila. So, I don't think the schools give it as much importance as winning a championship in their leagues, in the UAAP or NCAA. I think if the schools get together and then they say, okay, let's all, wala nang UAAP, wala nang NCAA, let's come up with a new league, a super league, where all these schools can get together and fight for one championship. I think that would be great for Philippine basketball. But, there are political considerations. I think the NCAA has its own sponsors. The UAAP has its own sponsors. Both of these leagues have their own TV networks that are opposing each other. So, unfortunately, politics is part of our life.
And of course, and you forgot to mention there's SFE also and other leagues like
That's
UCAL
right.
and
Yes, yes.
NCRAA.
Yes, yeah. You're right.
Baka pag ganun, Dadin, hindi na matapos ng 3 months yung season, year-round na.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of a system.
I have a phone-in question from our producer, Von Yalong. Sabi kasi, you mentioned earlier, San Beda. How could the San Beda move to the UAAP affect the dynamics of college basketball in the Philippines?
I don't know how it will affect the dynamics of the NCAA because San Beda is such an anchor in the NCAA. So a departure of a major team like San Beda from the NCAA will cripple that league. But I don't know if San Beda is thinking of bridging waters and going to the UAP. I'm sure the UAP will welcome the addition of a solid team. But it will also be a different kind of team because San Beda, over the last, 5 years, has played without a foreign student athlete.
Yeah.
If the UAP continues to use a foreign student athlete, mapipilitan ng San Beda to now go back to bringing in a foreign student athlete. But I think that can be done.
It is a different competition altogether. I mean, sabi nga dun sa isang podcast by Naveen, sabi niya, the UAP now, I mean, this is highly debatable.
Okay.
Is the most popular league in the Philippines.
Highly debatable.
Yeah, highly debatable, right?
Yeah. I don't think you can put one league in comparison to the other. I don't think it's fair to say what is more popular, PBA or UAAP.
Magkaiba.
They're different.
Yeah.
They're different animals. So I don't think it's fair to either side to be comparing one over the other. I think each one has its own brand of game that caters to a particular market or an audience. Each one has its own sponsors. Each one has its own following. So I never pit one over the other. Even NCAA and UAP, although they're both collegiate leagues, they have their own they have their own style.
Let's talk about that, Tadi.
Even the broadcasting is different.
Yeah, it's
right?
different. And broadcast partners, diba? Dadin, you saw the NCAA from its so-called glory years.
Okay.
Diba? They've been saying the 60s, the 70s, Ateneo and LaSalle was still part of the NCAA. And you see the NCAA now. Ano yung difference na nakita mo nun sa NCAA? Kasi nakikita ko rin yung mga write-ups dati, kahit sa mga microfilm, the Glamour League, the ano,
right,
diba?
yeah.
It's the NCAA.
Yeah.
And then Ateneo and LaSalle left.
Yeah.
What's the difference now between the NCAA of the past and then the NCAA now?
Well, you were talking about the glamour league or the glamour teams. It's a fact that if you take a look at the rankings of the schools, the university standings in terms of academic excellence and all the other factors, LaSalle, Ateneo, UP are always in the higher tier rankings. Not to put down any teams. It's just that they
in terms
they
of academics
aspire,
to Danine, right?
yes, that's right. But in terms of their aspirations, in terms of what they hope to achieve, they've certainly overachieved, and you have to give credit to those schools. And with that kind of a reputation, dun din yung sinasabi mong glamour leagues. They're the teams that carry that glamour image, because if you're considered among the top universities in the country, then it's easier for you to sell your schools to athletes because you provide the education, you provide a future for these athletes. So even the sponsors, even the following, even the kind of alumni who follow these teams, they will go where these teams are. But I also think that in the NCAA they have teams with great following. San Beda, Letran both of them have tremendous histories. Mapua has a long list of outstanding alumni, both in the public and private sectors. So, it's difficult to say, ano ba mas magaling na liga? So, I try to stay away from any kind of debate.
Safe sees the dean.
Yeah.
Safe sees the dean.
I really try to stay away from any kind of debate because, I always like to see all leagues prosper in their own way. If the NCAA believes that they can progress in the kind of way that they have established for themselves, then well and good, let's support it. Because in the end, it's for the benefit of all sports.
Yes.
It's for the benefit of all athletes. All these athletes get a chance to be able to display their skills in any university that they choose. And it's good for sports. I think it's good for the fans as well.
Safe answer, Dean, but I will accept that for now. Kasi my next question is, even my uncles, they graduated from NCAA schools before. Nung nawala yung Ateneo LaSalle, nung lumipat sa UAAP, kasi dati, parang medyo yung in terms of competition, medyo sabay daw. There was a time during the 90s that the San Sebastian Stags would destroy the UAAP competition during the time of Romel Aducol sa UAAP. Ngayon, medyo parang ang layo ng gap eh. Totoo bang may gap in terms of quality ng players? What's your stand there, Dean?
If you were to rate players, it's very difficult to say one has better players than the other because the NCAA, for instance, got very outstanding players. I think this guy Puno has a tremendous upside. I think this guy Miller from San Beda.
Excuse me, puno na kayo sa Lasal. Wag niyo na
No, of course not.
I was
but
just joking.
I understand that 3 of your players were being recruited by a UAP school.
Oh,
but I'm
juicy yan eh.
But I spoke with Jude and he made sure that they stayed.
Yeah. Naka-enroll na.
Tama yun. Buti na lang. Clint Escamis, for instance, he's a spectacular player. I think he can go straight to the PBA draft and get picked. So, each team has its own good players. In the same way that in the UAP, there are some players who are good, but if you look at the lineups, there are some players who will not be as good if they were to play elsewhere. So, it's a matter of distributing the wealth. And, for instance, I gave you the example of CJ Amos. Not going to be able to cut it in LaSalle, but went to FEU. And, I believe he has a tremendous upside and he's going to blossom. Maybe not in LaSalle, but maybe in FEU. Matt Rubico, he left LaSalle and he's now with Lyceum. And I think he's going to have a tremendous career in Lyceum. Penny Estacio went from LaSalle, couldn't really get his minutes, but look at how he's performing in Sambeda. So, you can see that it depends on the pathway of every player, the opportunity that presents itself. So, it's difficult to say, eto bang LaSalle mas magaling kasi dito because they have the better players. So, it depends. The players will go to where they are given the opportunities to shine.
Okay. Actually, ang dami ko pang question sa UAAP producer Pero let's move to this kasi we have, I think, the last 15 minutes.
Okay.
Dadine. So, you have another picture here. So,
Yes.
let's talk about this. Kasi syempre, hindi mo dadalhin to if it's not too important. Let's show our viewers this picture.
Okay, this is a picture of. Can you see it?
Yeah.
This is a picture of me with Michael Jordan. This was taken the year after Michael Jordan retired from the NBA.
Parang kahapon lang, Dadine.
This was actually 20 years ago, in the year 2004. Jordan had just retired from the NBA.
Yeah.
He finished his last season with the Washington Wizards, and this was taken in the 50th floor of the Park Hyatt Hotel in Tokyo. And Michael was in Tokyo to promote his Jumpman brand. So I was able to get a picture of him because Michael Jordan's assistant, Esti Portnoy, came up to me before. Prohibited kasi yung magpakuha ng picture kay Jordan. The bodyguards will stop you. But, luckily, and this is an amazing story, before the interview with Jordan, his assistant, executive assistant, Esti Portnoy, as I mentioned, came up to me and said, "You are Joaquin Henson? You are from the Philippines?" "Yes. I have a request for you." I said, "Yes. What is your request?" "Well, I live in New York. My nanny, her name is Elsie Paswell, I think is from Pampanga. When she found out that you were going to be in Tokyo to interview Michael Jordan, she asked me if I can get an autograph from you because she's a Filipina and she knows you." So sabi ko, naku, pagkakataon ko to. May utang na loob itong assistant ni Jordan. So sabi ko, yes, of course, I'll write a short note to Elsie. And then after I wrote that short note, I asked her naman a return favor. Can I have a picture with Michael? Giving him this book of the PBA. And she said yes. So at that time, I traveled with Relly San Agustin. At that time, he was working for...
I know him.
Yeah, he was working for Nike. Yes, that's right. Yeah, he was working for Nike at that time. And this was a Nike-sponsored trip. So Relly took this picture.
Oh,
and
galing.
I owe Relly for this.
Siguro si Relly gusto niya sabihin na, Dadid, ako rin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is the picture with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
The only picture I have.
Producer, can you get the picture? We'll show another one here.
Okay. So this picture of Michael Jordan, the only one I have with him, I've interviewed him 5 times. One time it was in a New York hotel. And this was on the occasion of the premiere of Space Jam. That was many years ago. I also interviewed him in Yokohama, and I also was able to ask a few questions to Michael Jordan during the Philippine coverage of the NBA Finals in 1997 and 1998.
Who's your GOAT, Dadine?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I feel with his 6 championships, with
malayo ba kay LeBron?
I think attitude-wise, in terms of his ability to bring out the best, not only from himself but also his supporting cast, I think it's just unbelievable. It's phenomenal. And LeBron James, sure, he won championships with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade at Miami. He won a championship in Cleveland. But I think what Jordan has done or did, which in Chicago, because it just wasn't Scottie Pippen, it just wasn't Dennis Rodman. It was also John Paxson. It was Steve Kerr. Those are the guys who made big plays for the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan being the leader. And when I covered the 1998 NBA Finals, in that Game 6, where Michael Jordan hit that winning shot, because Game 7 would have been in Salt Lake City. Game 6 was in Salt Lake City because at that time, yung NBA format was 2-3-2 So, kung natalo ang Chicago doon in Game number 6, Game 7 would have been in Utah, And the fans in Utah are crazy fans.
Yeah.
Decibel level was really sky high. But nung nakita ko yun, tapos yung ginawa niya kay Brian Russell, yung medyo pinush off niya to be able to get that shot.
Iconic.
Hindi naman tatawagin yun ng referee. But he made that shot, and boy, he's really the GOAT.
All right.
Well, there's another one here that I wanted to show.
Yeah, but quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
This one.
Maybe, this one is something I'm very proud of.
Wow.
This is, I co-authored this book with Bill Velasco. We wrote about the 50 greatest Filipino athletes. I wrote about 25. I wrote about 25 athletes, and Bill Velasco wrote about the other 25. And this was personally autographed by Manny Pacquiao. It says there, Toquinito.
Wow.
I've covered, maybe 3/4 of Manny Pacquiao's fights on TV. Unfortunately, I didn't cover his last one because the TV network did not accommodate Filipino commentators. But the previous fights of Manny Pacquiao, I did his coverage from ringside, wherever he was, whether he was in Macau, Las Vegas, San Antonio, also in Arlington, Texas. I was there to cover his fights, and he's really quite.
What can you
he's
say
quite
about
legend.
his last fight, Dadin?
Well, I thought he should have won. I also thought that for some reason the three judges gave the last 3 rounds to Mario Barrios, and that was the escape route, because at the end of 9 rounds, I saw the score sheets. Manny Pacquiao was ahead on the 3 judges' scorecards after 9 rounds. But I'm saying here that speculation, Las Vegas would have lost a bundle if Pacquiao won. Odds makers would have lost a bundle. And I don't know how those 3 judges could have unanimously given the last 3 rounds to Mario Barrios, when I thought that Manny should have won at least one of those last 3 rounds. If he had won one of those last 3 rounds on the judges' scorecards, he would have won.
Yeah.
But I don't think they wanted him to win. I don't think they wanted him to lose. So they agreed to a
Vegas
draw.
ba?
I don't know. It could be, but as you said, in this program, Courtside Daddy, anything goes, right?
Yeah, anything
Okay.
goes. Dadin, question.
Yeah.
You've been covering boxing also for the longest time.
Yeah.
Meron bang next Pacquiao ka nakikita?
Marami.
To be honest.
Marami.
Marami.
Manny Pacquiao has revived Blow by Blow. It's on its 3rd iteration. Blow by Blow started in 1995. Then it was revived in the early 2000s. And then in 2022, Manny Pacquiao revived it again, and it's still ongoing now. I do the coverage for Manny, and we go all over the country. We've gone to Vigan. We've gone to Cantilan in Surigao. We've gone to General Santos. We've gone to Imus. We've been to saan pa ba? Ang dami na.
Dami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been to
But it's great that Manny continued blow by blow.
yes,
Yeah.
and the reason for this is because he wants to provide a platform for young and aspiring fighters to be able to show their skills so that they can be discovered. Also, he wants to give an opportunity for those already parang in the cusp of winning championships. So wants to give them that opportunity to shine. And it's great that he's doing this, and we're going all over the country to find these fighters. Now, last Sunday, I covered a boxing event over at the Winford Hotel, and Kenneth Lover, who is the Oriental Bantamweight champion, scored a smashing knockout over a 2-time world champion Luis Concepcion of Panama. He's now the number 8 ranked bantamweight in the world by the IBF, and he will be fighting in a title eliminator on October 26. So he's a prime candidate to be a future world champion. Mark Magsayo is poised to become another world champion because he already was a former world champion before. And then we've got 2 world champions right now, Melvin Jerusalem and also Pedro Taduran. And we have upcoming fighters in Ken Danila, who's also undefeated. So marami tayong mga boxers. Oh, marami.
Marami in the pipeline, no?
Yeah, Marlon Tapales is ranked number 2. We have several fighters ranked number 1. And once you're ranked number 1, you're mandatory challenger kaagad eh. So, yeah, I think the future is very bright for boxing. And of course, Manny Pacquiao is still active.
Oo
At
nga,
46
yeah.
years old,
Oh
he's
my
going to
God.
fight again.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that he achieves his dream. You know, his dream is not for himself. His dream is to bring honor and pride to the country. And, you know, for that, we give him huge props because you know how hard it is to be a boxer. He sacrifices so much of himself to be in that ring, fighting for the pride and glory of our country. And, you know, we have to appreciate that.
That's another topic altogether. Dadin, ang dami nating pwedeng pagkwentuhan. Pero tapusin natin to, Dadin. You have two more, I
Yes.
think, magazines or books here.
Okay, well,
Let's show this one.
I wanted to show this because this is the very first PBA yearbook, 1975. And as early as 1975, sumusulat ako for the PBA. And I wanted to show this because while I was a writer in this yearbook, in the very first season of the PBA season, by the way, this coming season will be its 50th year.
Wow.
I wanted to say that I've been with the PBA for 50 years as a
Grabe.
writer and as a broadcaster since 1986.
You've been there from the start. Dadin.
Yeah, so I wanted to show this because, you know, I feel it's a league that deserves our support. And it's been around for so long. And it's around because of the fans.
Yeah.
You know, there are many challenges, especially now with overseas leagues
Yeah.
getting all of our best players.
Yeah.
But somehow, with all the critics talking about unfair trades, farm teams, and all of that, you know, I think the PBA still deserves our support. And the PBA, I can guarantee you, is doing its best to be able to provide you the best kind of entertainment there is from basketball. And my last is a program that I personally edited and I wrote. This is a program from 1982. This was
Wow.
the Asian Youth Championship that the Philippines won. Ron Jacobs was the coach of this team. Franz Pomaran was a player. Jong Wichika was a player. Hector Calma was a player as well.
Wow.
And,
Guard heavy, ah.
Tonichi Ituri was also there. Teddy Alfarero. So we won the championship. And this was an opportunity that Mr. Kawanko gave me. I was the MC of the opening ceremony of this championship at the Araneta Coliseum. Over 30,000 fans jammed the Araneta Coliseum. President Marcos was in the building to
Wow.
witness the opening ceremony. And I was given the opportunity and privilege to be the master of ceremonies of that program. And
That was a very proud moment for you. For
yes,
sure.
it was. Yeah, and it opened a lot of doors as well for me. And you know, I still, you know, this magazine I produced for Mr. Kawanko, and I'm very grateful to Mr. Kawanko for the many things that he gave me as for opportunities to shine in sports as well as in business because of my work in microfinance. And you know, he paved the way for me to become an adopted son of Tarlac, and for that I'm forever grateful.
Dadin, quickly, since you've been part of the PBA since the start, who's your PBA GOAT and why?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough question because there are so many great players. I would say the best PBA player ever was Sonny Jaworski. Not only because of what he did on the floor, but because of the excitement that he brought to the stands. You know, after every game, any fan who would approach him, he would stay and sign every single autograph until naubos niya yung mga fans asking for autographs.
Wow.
And you know, that kind of commitment to the fans, the way he gave back to the fans is something that every player should emulate. For that alone, I think he was the GOAT. And he still is the GOAT. I think Ramon Fernandez, Junmar Fajardo will come close, but I don't think anyone will match Robert Jaworski.
So, Mount Rushmore mo yun. So, tatlo. Sino pang isa?
Okay. That's a tougher even question. Jaworski, Ramon Fernandez, Junmar Fajardo. If I were to pick a fourth player, I would have to say Samboy Lim. Because again, of the electricity that he brought to the audience. And my gauge of a great player is the connection that player had with the fans. And all of those 4 players, grabe yung kanilang interactive relationship with the fans. And not only were they great players on the floor, but off the floor, the way they were to the fans is something that really you should applaud. And for me, those are the guys who should be in our PBA Mount Rushmore.
All right, so PBA yon, Dadin. And this is my last question. Who is the GOAT naman of Philippine basketball for you?
Carlos Loizaga. You know, I was a big part of getting Carlos Loizaga inducted in the FIBA Basketball Hall of Fame. I put together all the testimonies, all the proof, and all the records that I dug up to prove to FIBA that he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And without a doubt, Kaloy Loizaga is the greatest basketball player the Philippines has ever produced. What he did for the Philippines in the World Championships, what he did for the Philippines in the Olympics, the way he handled himself against teams like Uruguay and Australia, the big teams of that era, it's something that we should always give credit to. And paying tribute to Kaloy Loizaga, the big difference, will always be a major part of the history of Philippine basketball.
You wrote a book for Kaloy, right?
I was part of that book, yes. It was a book that had several writers, and I actually did that chapter. The longest chapter of that book was his international experience. And that was the basis for FIBA making him a Hall of Famer. That article that I wrote where I explained the different games that he played in the international scene that merited attention from FIBA.
Dadin, super nasulit natin tong episode na to. I'm so happy that you accepted our invitation, Dadin, even though bago pa lang si Courtside Daddy. And with that, a heartfelt thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Dapat magpasalamat sa inyong lahat. This is a great opportunity for me to come here and talk about my life, talk about my stories on sports. But I also want to thank all the fans out there for supporting me through the years. And, I continue to do podcasts. I do SIG Live. I do Blow by Blow. I do PBA.
Wow, dami.
I write stories and columns for the Philippine Star all the time. And I really appreciate all the support of all of my loyal followers. And I guarantee you that I will continue to give you the best of myself in my broadcasting, in my journalistic activities. And of course, I also want to say thank you very much to my family. My wife, Manchu, has always been on my side all these years. I want to thank you very much. She's the love of my life. My daughter, Christina, her husband, Mark, and my 2 grandsons, Jose and Luis. Our family is, like a team in sports. We're one. We're united, and we're strong. And our faith in God will always bind us together. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dadin. And we'd like to thank all the sponsors, all of the people who supported Courtside Daddy. Lahat po ng nanood sa bawat sulok ng Pilipinas, sa buong mundo. It's a very special episode. And of course, before we end, I'd like to thank personally Mr. Mark Nagkayon. Siya yung siya yung nag-bridge sa atin. So Mark, thank you for this. And to all our sponsors, maraming salamat. And with that, thank you very much.
Maraming salamat din. Thank you. Thank you.
A pleasure. At least in my life, I could say that I interviewed the one and only, the Dean, Mr. Kinito Henson. Good night. Maraming salamat, mga ka-courtside.
Yeah! Sa courtside, Daddy, tayo'y makinig. Dito sa sports, walang halong pilit. Totoo, direkta, walang kupas. Ang kwentuhan natin, swabet batas. Courtside Daddy, andito na. Balitang sports, tunay na saya. Usapang klaro, walang daya. Tiwala mo aming to, pare, game na. Interview, kwentuhan, walang bias dito. Kasama